rights law. They say they're charged an extra 50 to 80 cents per drink, but argue the cost of milk and its non-dairy alternatives are comparable, with whole milk 3 to 5 cents an ounce, while oat, soy, and almond milk range between 4 to 7 cents. Starbucks says customers can add up to 4 ounces of non-dairy milk to hot or iced brewed coffee or tea and Americano beverages at no extra charge. It also compared beverage customizations to other add-ons like an espresso or syrup shot. Lillian Wu, Fox News.
Cheating on your spouse is illegal in New York State, but a bill working its way through the legislature could change that. The law's been on the books since 1907, even though it's almost never enforced. Only about a dozen people have been charged under the state's adultery law since 1972. I'm Lisa Lacera. This is Fox News.
Turn me on. Hello, everyone. This is Lawrence Sutton. Got Chris Morris here coming in. He's running a little bit late, and this is Free Speech News, where we are not politically correct, but biblically correct. And there's two things you do not discuss, and that's politics and religion. And of course, Chris, me and you, we discuss both, don't we?
Constantly.
I mean,
you know, there's nothing wrong with trying to educate people and make them understand. Nothing wrong with it at all.
That's right. That's right. So we have a very special guest with us, and our special guest is Tiffany Boyd, and her website is www.freeyourchildren.com. Tiffany, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I still say this is just crazy to me. If someone had told me that I would be doing what I'm doing today, even 2 years ago, I would have said, you have absolutely lost your mind. So I started out as a public school teacher, a tenured public school teacher, when my husband decided that that no longer was going to be something that was working well for our family. We're going to enter into the world of homeschooling. And so we laugh about this all the time, and he says that this is one of the few times that you actually submitted. And I did so. I was one of those individuals who had a lot of misconceptions about homeschooling. I was not completely sold out to the idea because, again, I was a public school teacher. But I knew that we needed to make a change, and so we did decide that we were going to remove our children at the time. We had 3. We just had a brand new baby. And we were going to venture into the world of homeschooling. Well, 20 years later, our family is, we are homeschool veterans, and I help families navigate out of the public school system and educate their children at home. So that was the reason, the predominant reason why I founded For Your Children at first. And people knew that I had been in the education system, and for whatever reason, it wasn't working for them, and they wanted to homeschool their children, so they would contact me, and I would help them navigate that process. And then I realized really quickly that we had legislation in Tennessee that wasn't necessarily friendly to parents. And so it all started with me when I really got a pulse on this situation during the well-being child checks. And you might remember that. It was during COVID.
Right.
And I had founded a large support group that served over 1,000 families in Middle Tennessee. And, you know, we were doing field trips and enrichment opportunities and teaching classes and doing all these things. But we realized, a member of our group actually realized that there was an issue with the State Department's website, in that there was something uploaded to that website where they planned on coming into the homes.
Yeah, Penny Schwinn.
Yes, Penny Schwinn. She was our commissioner of education at that time. And the person contacted me and asked me what it was. And I said, I have no idea. I've not seen this before. So we mobilized and we started calling. And I was talking to a senator not long ago about this. And she said, your group shut the switchboard down at the Capitol over this. And we started out, originally it had homeschooling, you know, in that particular initiative that they were hoping to begin, which again was coming into your homes to do these well-being child checks. And so we pushed back. They removed homeschooling, and I said, no, we're in the state of Tennessee. The majority of homeschoolers are in the private school category, so that's not going to work. So the private school verbiage is a problem for us. So then they removed the private school language, and I said, we need to stop and think about this. Is it right for the government to come into the home of any parent?
Right.
and do a well-being child check. So that was tabled, or I like to say put up on a shelf, because it never really went away. And our state of Tennessee is lining up the decks to bring that back out of the closet. Janet Ayers, I believe, was on that particular foundation, on the well-being child check committee. And our state of Tennessee is actually partnered with her foundation and to provide more mental health help for rural counties. And so I see a lot of things that are really reminiscent, and them ramping up to bring this back out of the closet again. So that's how I got into the world of, I want to say, politics, legislation, really realizing that we were going to have to step up to the plate and be more in tune with what our legislature was doing, and reading bills and kind of keeping a pulse on that. And so then that led us to HB 1214 last year. We mobilized over 158 families that were closely monitoring that legislation, which was the at-risk boarding charter schools.
Okay.
And we wound up getting that. I don't ever want to say it goes away, because once it's brought and filed, it can always come back at some point,
right,
and be embedded in another bill, which is currently happening. And I know we're going to get to that, as this show progresses. But I really realized that we were going to have some boots on the ground, a grassroots organization that was really committed to protecting true educational rights, parental rights, and constitutional rights in the state of Tennessee. So that's when Free Your Children kind of navigated into that domain. And so then that's when I found myself doing all these crazy things, like being on the radio and writing monthly articles for the Borough Pulse, all, about the topics that we're discussing today.
Well, let me jump in here for a minute. I like when you say put it on the shelf, sort of like the elf on the shelf.
That's right.
You know, and there's a lot of bad things that go on. Number one, I want to say right out of the gate, I'm dealing with a situation right now that's bad.
Right.
And so, long story short, Governor Lee has done a poor job with commissioners of education. He's 0 for 2.
Yes, he is.
With Penny Schwem. And when this came out, Clay Doggett and I got heavily involved about this and the homeschooling and get the right of entry where they could do a wellness check.
Yes,
it's what
that's
they
what
were
it was.
calling it. A wellness check or well-being check. And I said, this is totally unconstitutional.
Absolutely.
There's so much that goes on up there in that puzzle palace at the state level. Now, up there in that sewer in Washington, it's even a lot, as we say, at the state line or Minor Hill, it's worser.
Well, I can tell you this, up there in Washington, you need a boat to navigate Washington and that swamp. At least here in Tennessee, we can run around in our muck boats. We can run around in our muck boats. We can wait it.
That's right. But the problem is, and what I'm in correlation with involves a neighboring county right now, is sometimes we don't get the whole truth. Now, we don't know whether that's intentional or unintentional, or we're misinformed. There's so many, you try to look and see the good in everybody.
Right.
You really do. But the more you peel back a layer of an onion, the worse it gets. So one thing before I forget, and sometimes I have a thought and Lawrence has a thought and we forget about it. I just want to touch, and I want to, I know Murray County was looking at getting a charter school through Hillsdale.
So hang on, you're getting ahead of me. Okay,
I'm getting ahead of you.
Please let me read this, and then we'll ask this question. Okay.
Okay. All right. Don't get excited.
No, I know. No, you've gotten ahead of me here. Because
we think too much alike.
We do. So I am going to go to page 34 of the Republican Party platform.
Of the
National Republican Party platform.
Okay.
I think we can all agree that we think that's the best platform that's ever been wrote for the Republican.
2016 and
Yes,
it carried over.
Yes.
It's still our platform right now.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I want to read this to you, Chris, and then I've already hit her. You know me, I don't ever sugarcoat anything, and I go right at it. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think we're both that way. That's a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
I know. I'm saying it facetiously.
Okay. So this is from page 34 of the Republican Party platform. I'm going to read this to you.
Okay.
And what you're going to hear is going to probably even piss you off a little bit.
Oh, Lord.
In a good way. No, in a good way.
Okay, all right.
All right, so here's what it says. And this is talking about schools. And it's talking about public schools, private schools, charter schools.
Any school.
Any school. We believe that federal funds should not be used in mandatory or universal mental health, psychiatric, socio-emotional screening programs, meaning SEL, Common Core stuff. Okay?
Obama.
Yes. The federal government pushed states to collect and share vast amounts of personal, student, and family data, including the collection of social and emotional data. Much of this data is collected without parental consent or notice. This is wholly incompatible with the American experiment in our unalienable rights. Okay? This is page 34 of our Republican Party platform.
So Obama, and with his Common Core,
Right?
then wasn't he the master of disaster for HIPAA?
No, that was no. He reauthorized, but no, that was Clinton. That was Clinton. But let's don't get in the weeds here, because there's a reason.
We're good at that too.
Yes, because there's a reason I brought this up.
Okay.
Because I want you to explain to me, because me and Chris both love Hillsdale College. Okay. I want you to explain to me why you were against the charter school system coming in, being under Hillsdale College.
Right. I get this question a lot. I'm glad you ask it, and I'm going to get the opportunity to explain it. I go into deep detail in this in the seminars that I've been doing around the state of Tennessee. And so first I want to pose you gentlemen a question. Are you familiar with who Charlotte Iserbyt was? She's passed on now, but do you know who she was? Okay, most people aren't. She actually worked under Ronald Reagan for the Department of Education during his first administration, and Charlotte was the consummate whistleblower. So Charlotte came across the plan, and you can read her book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. So if you haven't read it, I highly encourage you both to do that, and your listeners to pull that book and read it, because it's full of some great information. But Charlotte came across the plan that was going to be used to advance communism in America through workforce training. And the way they were going to do it was through charter schools, because they knew that by this point, the whole purpose. First off, let me preface this by saying public schools are not broken. They're doing exactly what they were designed to do. And they've been very effective at it, from destroying true traditional family values, advancing and normalizing perversion. All the things that they said they were going to do, they are doing.
One interruption. Since the 60s.
Yes, absolutely. Because they trained teachers in teacher colleges to go out and promote these ideologies.
They groomed them.
Yes, absolutely. So, getting back to what Charlotte did, she was privy to classified documents where these deals were being made. And so she was sounding the alarm, and people were ignoring her. Well, she wound up getting fired, but not before she had the foresight to take the classified documents with them and compile them in a book, The Dumbing Down of America, so that you can read them today. So she was sounding the alarm, and she said, our schools are going to be destroyed so badly that parents are going to be so desperate for an answer to this that they are going to settle for anything, including charter schools that give the taxpayers zero accountability. Because with charter schools, taxpayers, it's taxation without representation. They appoint their boards. These people aren't elected. So when Hillsdale came on the scene, I didn't have a personal beef with Hillsdale. What I had a personal beef with was the actual foundation, what this was seeking to advance, which is, communism. So what I started doing was I started doing a deep dive into the research of exactly what was going on in this charter school network. So these are Barney Initiative schools. They're public schools. They're not private schools. So they receive federal funding. They've accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal funding. And so I pulled the actual applications and read them. And we asked our leaders in Murray County, How many of you have actually read the application? It was over 500 pages. The answer was none. They'd not read the application.
So the application that was being proposed by Hillsdale.
The application that they applied to the state, they had to submit their application.
Oh, the application that the Murray County Board of Education.
Yes, that they posted publicly. You can still go and read them. I don't think you can access the Murray County one because it didn't pass, but you can definitely access the Rutherford County one because it's passed and is opening up.
500 pages.
Yes, they were very long.
And they did not read it.
They didn't read it. So
it gets worse. It gets worse.
So I pulled excerpts from those applications and added them to the seminars that I have been hosting around the state of Tennessee, where they are very clear in the fact that they will be implementing social emotional learning, the very things that our platform says that we're against.
Yep, I just read it.
They will be identifying at-risk children, which we're going to get into that, I know, later. They will be collecting vast amounts of data. And under FERPA, because Obama reauthorized it, you just mentioned that.
Now, we're using acronyms. Tell people what FERPA is.
FERPA is the Family Educational Rights Act. I believe that's the correct acronym for that.
Typically, when you hear an acronym from the government, it means the exact opposite.
Well,
I'm just going to tell you.
Like you and I always say, if our Congress and our senators would do away with every agency in the federal government that starts with 3 letters of the alphabet, this country would be a whole lot better off.
Right.
Absolutely. And so what this does is it allows data to be collected without parental consent, and then that data can be whatsoever, and then that data can be given to any entity in the name of educational research. So data is a huge moneymaker across the nation. It's not just happening in Tennessee. This is, nationwide where this is happening. So my concerns with these charter schools was, first, they weren't reading the applications, but second, parents were really believing that this was going to be totally different than a public school and that their children were going to be somehow protected.
It sounds a lot worse than a public school.
Yes, because there was no weigh-in from the taxpayer because their boards are appointed.
But because they get taxpayer funding, they are a public school.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Your local public schools...
Yeah, I knew you would.
Yeah, so your local public...
You've been given some bad information, Chris.
Yeah, and it's a sales pitch. I mean, they're business people, and so they do a great job at selling this. The problem is most people don't know. People wanted to... strangle me, can I say that?
Yeah.
String me up by my toes. Yeah. I mean, they were angry with me, but they didn't bother to take the time to call me directly and say, hey, what's really going on with this? Why are you opposed to this? So I go into great detail in the seminars that I've been hosting about why this is a bad thing, because I don't want my taxpayers' dollars funding another avenue of education that's going to be doing the same thing as public schools, but yet I have no say-so. If you don't like what's going on here in Lawrence County, if your children were enrolled in a school in Lawrence County,
in the public
school system, which these charter schools are public schools too, and you didn't like something that was happening, you could go to a school board, right?
That's
because
correct.
those board members are elected, and you would expect them to listen to you and listen to your concerns. If they didn't, you could do what when it came election
Vote
time?
them out.
Correct.
Give them a term limit.
You can't do that with charter schools.
Right.
They're appointed. Okay.
And I understand that. Mm-hmm.
This is really taking the camel and having his nose stick up underneath the tent here, Chris.
Well, at the same token, and I think, Tiffany, I hope we agree on this, and I hope we do.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem I have with the school board, and we got 7 members in Giles. How many of y'all got in Murray? 9?
10, I believe. I'm not sure of the exact
11.
number.
Y'all got
11.
y'all got 11.
Yeah,
we have
10,
8.
11. Okay, yeah.
Y'all have 8. So thank God we only got 7.
We're District 10, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I don't like the idea of school board members appointing a director of schools.
I agree.
I have heard that. I've heard that numerous times, and I'm going to tell you, I have 2 thoughts on this. If I wasn't in Lawrence County and I didn't know Michael Atkins and who that man is.
I understand that personally.
Then I would agree. Well, it's not even just personal. I'm just talking about the job that the man's done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the man's done a great job.
I love to meet him. I don't think I've ever met him.
I will tell you this. That man's done a great job for the school systems here. and he's done some things that have been very unpopular, but were the right call to do.
Okay, and I understand.
Yeah.
But you're fortunate.
Yes,
Just
we
like-
are. We are.
Just like in other avenues that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's take that out of the equation.
Absolutely. If it wasn't for Michael Atkins, I'd be all for, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and vote.
The thing about it is, in rural county Tennessee, which is most of them, the majority, 80%, in rural Tennessee, that has not been working with these appointed directors of schools. What's your take?
I agree. I hear from people all across the United
you agree
States.
with me?
I do. I hear from people, and this is why, and you're right. If a county or a district has a great director of schools, they have a jewel.
Yes.
But I hear from a lot that do not. And then they go to school board meetings and they don't seem to be making any headway. Does that make sense? They still keep having the
understand.
same problems over and over, and they feel like they have no control.
It's called Pete and Repeat.
Yes. And so I hear about that often. I've actually covered stories in other counties where they've had issues with their directors of schools, and people can go back and access those and listen to them about, very valid concerns. I mean, they've made the news, like the national news in some instances.
Well, now here's one thing, and I'm playing devil's advocate here too. So I'm not just saying, because of Michael. But it's my understanding that if there's enough complaints to a school board, they can fire him almost immediately. Where if you have an elected position, you can only fire him every 4 years.
Well,
am I correct on that?
We need to
I'm not sure.
understand the recall system.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a provision, I think, in state law of recalling an election.
Well,
So,
why haven't we done it with Bill Lee is what I want to know, Chris.
Well,
you're one of 66. You're one of the more powerful members of the Republican Party here, Chris. I'm telling you, why are we letting this man ruin our state?
Well, there's a lot that goes on because just to answer that briefly, and I appreciate you bringing it up, I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
Okay? Because as I say a lot of times, and I don't know if you've ever watched our show, Tiffany, but we have a lot of folks that are trans Republicans. They don't know whether they're male or female, gay or straight. And I'm just being point blank honest. And if you get mad, you got the same pants to get glad in.
Well, they're trans Republicans because they don't know if they're Democrats or independents or Republicans.
That's the problem we have. So when you're trying, and I'm listening, you've got my ear. When you're trying so hard to sound the board and blow the whistle and say, listen, folks, we need to step back and take another look at this. And I know that a lot of folks in Murray County got up in arms because they felt like you yourself are the one that stopped their charters.
And I'm glad she did then.
Well, I have to say, I didn't
seeing.
realize I was that powerful, but, whatever with that.
If she did, I'm glad she did.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it...
And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go right ahead.
But I'm going to tell you this, Chris. If the people in Murray County are mad about it, then obviously they're not Republican. They're one of your trans Republicans, Chris, because they haven't read what our Republican Party says on its platform. I'm just telling you what they, I'm just telling you.
And I agree with you. I mean, we have so many issues.
Yeah.
They're coming at us at 1,000 miles a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And everything is happening. I've got to step away.
Okay.
No. Yeah, he brought out a point, and one of the biggest obstacles I feel like that we have is people are not educated.
Right.
And I don't mean that derogatorily. I'll be the first one to say, I didn't know until I knew, right?
Right.
But the thing about it is, you have to be willing to let people share what they know.
Yeah.
And not censor them. And then when we know better, we have to do better, right?
We absolutely have to, but that's the whole point I'm trying to make on this. Is that there's so much going on that we cannot be an expert on everything.
Exactly.
And what we have to do is we have to pick our lane that we're in And then we're going to have to surround ourselves with the right people and trust their judgment when it's being brought to us. So you've read 500 pages of this, and you're going to bring us the Cliff Notes version, but it's what we need to know.
Exactly. And what I tell people is, don't take Tiffany Boyd's word for it. I'm telling you
How
what
many
I know.
times have we said that? We say that every
Yes.
program.
I
Yes.
mean, really.
So that right there tells me she's telling the truth.
I mean, take what I'm telling you and then go do your research.
I'm just telling you, Chris.
And I'm guilty. I haven't done my research on that.
I got
because
goosebumps. That's
Well,
Holy
yeah,
Spirit witness.
me too. And you know,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, and so I'll say this. I realize that our legislators, I'm sure they are posed with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages to read.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Probably hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and so a lot of them that I've spoken with have been very honest in saying there's no way we can read everything. We can't read everything.
Honesty is your best policy.
Yeah, so what they have to understand is they need to at least listen to, or at least be open to listening to the people who've read it.
Well, let's mention this. Maybe we can get something started in a positive way. It's
Absolutely.
nothing negative
No,
about
no.
it.
Right.
Let's be positive.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know where you will understand years ago, and you probably know this. You may not. But the legislators, the House, let's just stick within the House because there's 99 House members. They were unlimited on the number of bills they could present.
Right.
Now they're limited to 15.
Yeah.
Unless you're William Lamberth or
Yeah.
Cameron
but
Sessions.
hang on to that. You're getting ahead of me.
Okay.
But and he's right. But you got 15 bills, and if every House member of the 99 presents 15 bills, 15 times 99 is 1485. 1,500 bills.
It's going to be a lot more than that because
But-
William Lamberth
but
has
that's where I'm
144.
going.
Yeah.
Here we're going. We've got William Lamberth carrying bills, and I don't know how Jeremy Faison equates into this. But anyway,
Well, he's got a parental rights bill we should be watching, so there's that.
Oh, yeah? What is that?
well,
I've got that on my phone.
he's not one of my favorite Republicans up there, and I don't mind him knowing it. I don't mind telling people out there. I feel like Mr. Faison should have been sanctioned for his activities at a basketball game as a state legislator. We need to call these people out.
Absolutely.
And I think that should be the role of the state executive committee. We should be holding these people to accountability. And, same thing with our lieutenant governor with his shenanigans that's unbecoming
Yeah.
to be fit to be in office.
You said something that was really important, and Lawrence and I were having a discussion about this before we went on air, and you said we've got so much coming at us at one time.
We do.
And I said, yes, and it's on purpose. So right now...
It's a distractor.
It's a distractor. You're exactly right. One of the things that we found out by accident is that a friend of mine was at the Capitol, and she just happened to wander into a committee meeting. She was there for another bill, and she happened to wander into a committee meeting, and it was an education committee meeting, and she sat down, and she said, I had a few minutes, so I thought, I'm going to listen to see what they're actually hearing, today. So... Again, as we were saying earlier, I had been in opposition to the at-risk boarding charter school last legislative session, and we had watched it, all session to see what they were going to do with that bill. And we kept saying, and I recently did a podcast just a few days ago where we mentioned this at-risk boarding charter facility, and I said, that is going to resurface at some point. We just don't know where yet. Well, she happened to be sitting in this committee hearing, and guess what?
It came up.
And it's already passed through the Senate Education Committee. And so this particular amendment was embedded in a bill that spoke about allergies, reporting allergies for children. That was the caption.
I know Joey's on that. I guarantee Joey doesn't know about this.
And it was embedded in a 275-page amendment. And so this
275 freaking pages
200
Just for the amendment.
Just for the
amendment?
amendment.
Not the bill, just the
Yes.
amendment.
in the
Ju-
state of Tennessee.
Yes. And so this
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so it gets even better. So this particular at-risk boarding charter, it's going to be a residential facility because it can operate year-round. So they're going to identify children as at risk, and then they're going to place them in this at-risk boarding charter facility. And this is what we dealt with last year during HB 1214. The categories for at-risk, it was like a Pandora's box. It was such a wide berth. Well, that's back again, and it's embedded in this. And so the problem with this is now these will likely fall under Category 1 schools, where if this voucher legislation then passes...
Oh, what's a Category 1?
They register directly with the state, which is right Yeah, they register directly with the state.
So we're going to rock it like a hurricane now.
Yes. So these Category 1 schools, they are as closely, and this is what Cameron Sexton said in a call that was leaked that we covered recently. He said these schools are as close to a public school as possible, so they can utilize vouchers, but they will not have to be in existence for 3 years to be able to utilize these vouchers. So these are going to be likely include these at-risk boarding charter facilities where these children are going to be identified as at risk. And again, in my seminars, I go into what this means. And these kids will be placed in these facilities. Our taxpayers' dollars will be funding them. There'll be federal funds attached to these students that are being warehoused in these facilities. Yes. And so, that is part of the voucher bill. And then they're running this parental rights bill, and you ask about that. Let me put my glasses on so I can read it, because I can't read anything without my glasses. So this particular bill is being carried by Fiazon, and it's HB 2936 and Senate Bill 2749.
Who's got it in the House? I mean,
Farrell Hale in the Senate.
Oh, Lord, there's another Republican.
Yes, and Jeremy Faison in the House. So what this bill does, and I've been sounding the alarm on this, so all these bills are working in tandem with one another.
I'm going to discuss this with you off air.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do it on air, but yes.
Okay, so this is what, and so this is why I've been so passionate about this for so many years and trying to host these seminars and get people educated. We need our men to step up. We need our men to come to the Capitol with us and fight with us, okay? I'm taking lots of arrows. And
I've been up to the Capitol 3 times the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was... I needed to wash. I need to wash the mess off of me.
You mean you need a bath with a fire hose? That's what right. I say every time I leave there.
You got to be detoxed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm being accosted by Americans for Prosperity in the hallway when I leave the committee hearings.
That's a whole new.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to stay on topic on this one.
Yeah. So. What this bill does, it's not a parental rights bill. Okay, parents see things and that say parental rights bill, and they think it's the magic pill, okay, that's going to keep Tennesseans safe. Actually, this bill is horrible. What it does is it actually gives parents rights to the state or any entity, so they can make medical decisions for your children. So if a government entity
do what?
Yes,
say that again very slow. You speak fast, okay? Say that again very slow.
They can make medical decisions for your child. So I'm going to read this to you.
As in trans.
Yes. So Connie Regule is the one that sounded. I had written a couple of months ago about how dangerous the enumeration of parental rights is. Okay, I wrote an article.
We talk about enumeration all the time.
I had written this 2 months ago. It wasn't even this bill. It was another bill. Now that bill, it has been shelved, okay, or withdrawn. But this particular bill is still running through. And I always say a government large enough to tell you what your rights are is a government large enough to take them away. You never, ever, ever want the state of Tennessee codifying what your parental rights are in a bill.
And that's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing. So this particular bill, I'm going to read Connie's words. These are her words. She says, it's enumeration of parental rights. That's what she's saying here. And she says there's a lot of unlesses in here. What the parental rights bill does is enumerate parental rights and provides multiple exceptions for the government to block parents from protecting those rights. It includes the word unless 5 times and provides a slippery slope of exceptions, like when a parent provides blanket consent or when any person represents themselves as having authority to consent as to waive parental rights. The word unless is used 5 times and gives reasons for parental rights to be subverted by the government. like the government's right to interrogate your child without your knowledge, which is already happening in Kingsport City schools, by the way.
Really?
Yes. This bill allows for a complete absence of consent when there is law enforcement interaction, aka SRO officers in the schools, on a child.
That's BS.
Right. All right.
That's unconstitutional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
We're getting to that. So an SRO officer can stop your child at school and isolate them and interrogate them.
And
okay?
And it's especially,
there'd be a cold day in
Hey, listen, it's especially bad in charter schools.
Yes. Well, and it gets worse. So I've been sounding the alarm about the medicalization of schools. And are you a 2A guy? I'm a 2A girl.
I'm a 2A.
You a 2A guy? Okay. Here's the thing. There's been a huge push to medicalize schools across the nation, but we live in Tennessee. So for this program, we're going to stick with that. They're loading up the schools with social workers, DCS folks. They're loading up the schools with psychologists, clinical social workers, okay?
I've heard this stuff, and I'm saying, man, when I was in school, we didn't need all this crap.
Right.
Yeah, you know who my psychologist was in school? Is my coach, and he kicked me in the butt when I didn't do right.
Well, see, this allows them to diagnose or to label a child as at risk. And if you're labeled as at risk and then they label you with some type of medical condition, what are you not going to be able to do when you become of age?
You're not going to be able to buy a gun.
Or buy a gun.
Now, you can vote, but you won't be able to buy a gun.
Correct. So, this bill does not require government officials to establish probable cause with credible evidence. The Fourth Amendment protects persons from search and seizure unless probable cause has been established. Federal case law is clear on this. However, children have no protection from Fourth Amendment seizure and interrogation under this bill. Probable cause is not required.
Whoa, bullshit.
You can't say that. You can't say that, Chris. We're on air.
Well, I did say it. And the thing about it is that's strictly in violation of my God-given constitutional right.
Absolutely.
And whoever is coming up with this can go pound sand. We need to get rid of these idiots.
Well, this is being heard next week. It's being heard next week.
And Faison is carrying it in the House. Mm-hmm. And Hale. Mm-hmm. And
I'm going to tell you something. I cannot picture Faison have even read this. And I went and looked, while we were talking. Faison's carrying 39 bills. Sexton's carrying 42. Mm-hmm. And William Lamberth is carrying 144.
Well, gentlemen, it gets worse.
Well, let's keep going. Keep going.
So then you get into the slippery slope of the barely comprehensible clause when parental rights do not apply. So this is when parental rights do not apply. I'm going to say that again.
They always apply.
No. In this bill, parental rights do not apply for a minor participating in a program for which the minor's parent has consented to the child's participation by an employee of the institution of higher education or other school official. If your reaction is, I totally do not understand when this applies, you're correct. It's confusing and likely has a broader scope of application. So who's giving consent? The parent or the employee or an other school official? And what is the participation? Then you go back to blanket consent. Now school admission papers or perhaps any other activity for minors will include a blanket consent clause. Parents will need to read the fine print on everything associated with their child. Okay, another section, which is really dangerous, is a government entity or any other person reasonably relies in good faith on an individual's representation that the individual is the parent of a minor child or has otherwise been granted authority to make decisions regarding a minor's care under state law. In layman's terms, this means that a person providing medical or mental health treatment for your child can avoid liability by saying, "Oops, I made a mistake." Under the medical decision-making section, the law defines a person as an individual, a corporation, or any other legal or commercial entity, whether or not a citizen or domiciliary of this state, and whether or not organized under the laws of this state.
Who wrote that freaking bill?
And a person under this bill can administer emergency care to your child without your consent.
No. Who wrote the bill?
I don't know. That's a good
Faison's
question.
carrying it. Faison's carrying the bill, and this is a companion bill to the school voucher.
Well, these bills are working, in my opinion, in tandem with one
Right,
another
that's what I meant.
because,
Yeah.
you know, if they can get this passed through, then it's going to give accessibility to individuals that may have a vested interest in placing your child in an at-risk boarding charter facility, which is another bill that is currently being run through.
So I can tell you this. I actually talked with Paige Wally today. We had like 4 different conversations today. And he is strictly against the voucher programs and the things that are being put in place right now. And he gave me 4 talking points he wanted everybody to know. One, he said that they're financially unaffordable at present.
Correct.
He says, we have reduced revenue this year, and yet we want to spend over $750 million in year 1 in what he calls an unproven concept, because he says the current pilot programs in Shelby, Davidson, and Hamilton counties have shown very poor results.
Hamilton has asked to be removed from the pilot
Well, I'm
program.
just telling you that he said the results are terrible, is what Paige has said. He says it also diverts money from public schools and adversely impacts rural counties in particular. He said the counties that he is representing, he says it even hurts them a lot more than it would a county like Davidson or Shelby County. He says the statewide voucher programs, and Paige said he's been looking into this. He said have been an absolute failure in like Arizona,
Yes, that's
Georgia, and Florida.
That's
Did
right.
Alabama not pass that
They just
this
did.
week?
They just passed universal school choice.
But Paige said he's looked at these other states
That's
that have
correct.
done
I
this,
understand.
and he said that they have been failures. So why do we think that we can
We wanna
not
go
be a
in that
failure?
sewer.
Yes.
Why do we want to go in that sewer? And he also says this. He said there was too much intrusion on private and home schools.
Yes.
And he says, and it opens the door up for the Department of Education intrusion. I mean, this is from him. I'm
Yes.
just reading what
know
he sent
you're
me.
right. I see it.
Well, he's
I mean-
correct. He's these are the same things that I've written about this for 2 years. He's right. I asked specifically one of our representatives today for data to prove to me that these programs have been a success in other states where they've been implemented, and no one can provide the data.
Oh, Lord.
See,
So
but-
we're just out there throwing it on the wall
are they,
and see what's going to
well, see, the
Correct.
data's out there because Paige has read the data.
Yeah, data that I asked specifically for data that shows it's a success.
That it's a success.
That it's successful.
Oh, yeah, there's not.
There's none.
There's
There
none.
is none.
She's on the opposite end of the seesaw.
Okay. Okay. And see, here's the other thing, and this was brought up by somebody else that they thought was another reason not to do it. And I can't use his name because he didn't ask. He didn't ask.
He
me
didn't
to.
give you permission.
That-
Right.
I did, right. He says after 3 years of this law being satisfied, he said any individual or organization could establish a private school and teach whatever and have whatever mission statement that is contrary to the American values and beliefs, and Tennessee would be required to substitute that tuition up to $7,000, $5,000 from state and $2,000 from local. And he said Florida's a perfect example of that. He said because they have Chinese communists opening up charter schools right now in the state of Florida because of this.
Yes, and I covered that in the seminars that I've been doing as well. And I also took a clip from I can't remember, I believe it was in the House, that's where it was. And I think it was Representative Todd Warner, and he asked them, could schools potentially that may be teaching Satanism, that may be teaching the LGBTQIA, whatever the
Alphabet
acronym,
people.
could they, Muslim schools, could they open up and utilize these vouchers? And the answer to that is yes, and that is what is happening
It would
in
take
other
somebody
states.
like Todd Warner. Todd Warner is one of the better ones. I mean, we love Todd Warner.
Let's hold that thought because I want to give a shout out here in a minute. Now, here's the carrot that's being dangled.
Right, with the
Okay,
stick.
with the stick, with the cane. Okay, they got it out there dangling it to good,
Entice.
solid, conservative representatives, good, salt of the earth people. They have painted them a rosy picture that this county W, is going to get $600,000. That's a big shot in the arm for County W. County L is going to get like 2.2 million. Okay? County M is going to get like 4.3 million.
And you know what? But see, here's the thing, and this is what. Hang on, this is what Paige said.
They're selling it on.
Yes.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is what Paige said. That's only for year one. Year two, they could jerk it. They could take it all away.
And then who's going to be holding the bag? We going on a snipe hunt?
No, we will be holding the bag. The county
That's
school
what I'm saying,
system.
the county will be.
Yeah,
We'll
the
be
taxpayers
Yes,
will.
The
the
taxpayers will be on the hook.
That's right.
It's like a snipe hunt.
Yes.
It is. It is. Did you ever catch a snipe?
I ain't never caught the first one.
Me neither.
But
I bit on snipe hunts.
but this is what's wrong with government.
Yes.
We've got people who want to be a hero up there,
Right.
and they want to bully their way around and bear their chest out like a bulldog.
And show, look how good I am.
And look at me, and rub their belly.
Yep.
Okay. Then you got somebody, and this is where I'm going, and I like to speak precise and very clear where there's no misunderstanding my words coming out of my mouth. Todd Warner has took a hell of a lot of errors. A lot.
Absolutely.
They are after him like no tomorrow. AFP, all these, the commie mommies.
Yeah.
Everybody is down on Todd. I think Todd is actually, when you peel the layers of the onion back, Todd's right.
I had an opportunity to actually interview him last week on my radio show, and we
Okay.
talked about these hard topics, and we went into detail, and we thanked him for being willing, to stand up, because we knew that they were going to go on attack mode, because this isn't their agenda. You see what I'm saying? Like, he went against the
doesn't
agenda.
fit
That's
their
right. It
agenda.
doesn't fit the agenda, and he was willing to stand up. And we had discussions about this, about the public has been sold a bag of lies that there are no strings attached to this money. And I actually testified in the House and the Senate in opposition to these bills. And it's not true. There are strings. Anytime the government gives you money, there's strings.
Tentacles.
That's right. And there's federal strings attached to this money.
As well.
Yes, illegal citizen or the illegal aliens. Am I allowed to say that? Are
you're
going to
fine.
be
That's
able,
what they are.
yes, are going to be able to utilize these vouchers. That's
Yeah.
already been stated.
Yeah, and we've talked about that.
Yes, and
We don't ride with Biden.
exactly.
So you can say it.
All
But some smart aleck made me a sign.
yeah. I mean, the thing about it is taxpayers have been sold something that's not true. AFP's done great at selling this. I'll hand it to them. I mean, they've doorknocked.
Now, who is AFP?
Americans for
Americans for
Prosperity
Prosperity
are the big push behind this school choice initiative in the state of Tennessee. So is American Federation for Children. That's Betsy DeVos's, baby. If that's what you want to call it. But AFP has lobbyists at the Capitol regularly, and they've been there in committee when we've been there, and they've brought in all their people.
So, Tiffany, let me ask you this, because I went up there 3 times
Yes.
on some bills over the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Unlike these lobbyists, how much money are you being paid to do this?
We are completely grassroots, so no one pays me anything to
That's
do
right.
this. They may compensate me for a speaker fee if I do a seminar.
Yeah.
Those aren't
They may
often.
buy your lunch.
They may buy my lunch.
But you don't look for it. You don't ask for
No,
it.
they may. That we have asked for people to make donations to cover the expense of our radio shows, because that's not free.
Right.
We're a pay to play. So if you want to be on the radio show, you have to pay for that slot. So if someone feels like they agree with the message of Free Your Children and want to sponsor a radio show, they do that. But let me just put it this way. I would be a rich woman if I spent as many hours on an actual job as I do this.
Right. Correct.
Because
And
there's
I
no
would
money.
Be a rich
Yes.
man.
I would too.
There's no money in this.
And you would too.
Right.
But
these people up there
don't understand. Even in
No.
my position, there's $0.
Yeah.
There's zero reimbursement for any
You're doing it for the love.
Per
Yeah.
diem.
So you don't have a $1 billion or $1 million organization backing you, right? We don't.
I don't have.
You're not
we
getting,
don't,
so,
no.
you know, I'm making this point.
Yes.
Here's why I'm making this point, is because you are being demonized
Yes.
by people with millions of dollars
Yes.
that are being paid to demonize you.
Correct.
And they're being paid to go up and sell a bunch of lies to our elected officials.
Correct. You know, in the grand scheme of things, I'm still a mom. I'm still homeschooling 2 of our children. I'm still taking care of a household. It's not convenient for me to go to the Capitol and take a child or 2 with me and sit up there for 12 hours. And I tell people all the time, love me or hate me, I'm still fighting for your freedoms too.
That's right.
You know, in the end, if we get what we're asking for, if we're able to attain true autonomy in terms of educational rights in the state of Tennessee, everyone wins, even the people that don't like me.
You know what? And here's the crazy part, and it reminds me of what Jesus says. And he talked about at the, at the end times. And he said that, know this, that they first hated me.
Correct.
So when you're hated, when Jesus says that they first hated me,
Right.
know that you're in good company.
Exactly. And I want to be clear, people have been sounding this alarm. It's not just Tiffany Boyd. There were
Right.
people who came before me. I highlight them on my radio show because when we talked about earlier, we need to stay in the lane where our area of expertise is. All I know is education. That's my area of expertise.
That's your area
I
of
feel
expertise.
like. And I still learn something new every day. I don't know everything.
I can tell. See, me and Chris, we're expert at our own opinions.
Well, this is what I study, live, sleep, and breathe. And then I bring other people who were sounding the alarm 10 years ago, 15 years ago on the show to share their area of expertise. And I do this across the nation with people who are fighting against this all across the United States. So people can see the scope of this because this is a nationwide push and they're coming hard and fast. And like you said, they're using all kinds of diversions and all kinds of bills that they're throwing in the pot all at one time, hoping people will miss something.
The reason I brought up, and Lawrence already knew the answer, I'm sure, the 15 bill limit that they passed needs to be more like a 5 bill limit.
Yeah.
Or why don't we do...
And they need to limit Lamberth, and they need to limit Saxton and Faison.
What about we have some
They ain't
years?
anybody
Why don't we have like the next 5 years? Let's go eliminate bill reduction. Yeah, let's just pass a budget and then let's start reducing some stupid laws.
You know, honestly, and I'm going to say this. This is something that's kind of rubbed me in the last 10 days that you don't even know about. We have not even discussed. There are a lot of different type people out there across. We've got a great state, okay?
Absolutely.
But they're out there, and there's people who are getting, or lobbyists, or getting a bill carried by a House member or a senator, and they don't even know what the bill really is.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have learned this the hard way, and I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah.
And it's not right. And then these people, like right now, I collect sales tax for the state of Tennessee. No questions asked. On the 20th of the month, they withdraw it from my checking account,
Right.
whether it's there or not. But there are things, when a person pays me by debit or credit card, I don't care if they say a $5 minimum or $10 minimum in the store. We got a 3% for using a debit or credit card, or a 5% charge. You never get ahead of those credit card fees.
Right.
We are a country and a state we're feed freaking to death.
Yep.
And a lot of these fees are unconstitutional. But we don't take the time to pull the brake
Right.
and the lever back on
Yeah.
all this, because like if you come in and you buy $10 of goods and you pay with a debit or credit card, $1 of it is taxed.
Right.
So you're actually paying $11. But when you run that card, the merchant, the owner, pays the fee on the $1 too. But the state of Tennessee don't give you that fee back.
Right.
but they sure will penalize your butt.
Exactly.
If you are late or something happens, they start adding penalties and late fees.
Yep.
All this is, I don't know why merchants, whether you are the local Schwab and Shop here in Lawrenceburg or Ace True Value, why people ain't raising HELL about all these things the government does to us that are really unconstitutional.
Yeah.
I know, and that's what we got to do. And you know what? Fastest hour in radio. We have 2 minutes left.
But on this thing, you need to come back.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Don't mind if you wanted to come back Monday even,
Right.
Okay? Because this needs to be
important.
continued. Yeah. There's a lot of things that's at stake. You know what's going on with the Trump delegates that were non-bona fide. You actually saw me in action standing up for what was right for Republicans. And you've seen me be told half-truths.
Right.
So it goes both ways, but we got to give a shout out to Todd Warner, who sponsors this show.
And you know what a good man Todd is? He's not. People can't even vote in the district.
Todd,
I'll put you on the spot.
Well, I appreciate what Todd did. That's the reason why I invited him on my show to be a guest, because I wanted him to be able to
WDXE,
have the opportunity to tell why he did what he did. And we have great
W237FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.
Let's send it out.
Let's send it out. Hey, everybody, let's have a great weekend. And God bless America. God bless Tennessee. And we'll see you Monday.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.